Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Ice out is on the way, and that means that there are certain things that anglers need to be paying attention to as they get out on the water for the first time after that ice leaves the lake. And there are things that normally happen, and then there are things that might be happening this year because of the mild winter that we had this year. So when we come back, Casey from Anglers International Resources is going to give us the lowdown on what we need to be paying attention to. Stick around, guys. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to MFO, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher.
This is Casey Tucker.
And we're here at Anglers International Resources. And Casey, tell us a little bit about what anglers need to be aware of. Ice is out. What do we need to be thinking about as we're deciding what we're going to be fishing and how we're going to be fishing?
Well, the big thing is you're going to want to focus on how long has the ice been out or on. The lake, it's going to have less weeds when you have a longer winter. So this year, having a short winter, where I'm going to expect a lot of the ponds to be a little bit more on the weedy side, which is going to be a lot more oxygen in the water, which should really have this season be starting off strong.
If we got a big hard winter where there's ice on the water for a long period of time, I know you were talking about this. We were both kind of, when you drill a hole through the ice, you can actually smell that kind of stagnant, rotting kind of stuff coming up through the hole. Yeah. But that's not what's going on this year, because we've had ice on, but then there's not been ice. It's been a pretty mild winter. So in those winters where the ice is on for a long time, that kills off the weeds that are in there.
Yep.
And so what you're saying then is when the ice does, in those types of winters, those hard winters, when the weeds do come back, that oxygen coming back into the lake really draws the fish into the lake.
Yep.
So in those times, and I realize that's not what's going on this year, but in those times, what kind of baits are you typically looking at when that oxygen is finally coming back into the lake?
At that time, it's really, they're hungry, they're feeding, they're very just ready to go, so you're looking at reaction strike baits. Most of the time it's the lipless bait. You have Rapala's Rippin' Raps, very loud rattles. They got great colors, two main sizes, a size 5 and 6, and just rip them. Just rip them right through whatever you can find. Any
speed,
cover.
Noise, you got the weeds that you can rip them through.
Yep, all the vibration.
And that's the ticket. And you got to think about it. This is, I mean, it's like if we're in a situation where we're getting pumped fresh oxygen, we're lively and active. We're on the move, right?
That's right.
And that's what's happening with the bass in that situation.
Yes, they're really triggered by this bait. They almost can't resist it.
Now, let's talk about where we are now. Mild winter, so the oxygen probably hasn't been diminished quite as much. And so now what do you suggest, or is there a difference in...
Well, I would expect a lot of lakes, depending on where you fish, you know, the weed growth is still going to be pretty strong. So sometimes trying to throw a lipless bait through some weedier situations, they coat up too much and you're trying to rip them off, but they still come coated. So that's when I would definitely be switching to a jerk bait. Of course, Rapala's old standard original floating for the old school guys.
Which we got a lot of old school MFers here on the channel.
There's also the standard old Husky jerk, which has started the suspending style. And then, of course, Rapala comes out with the new Maverick. And for that guy who spends the money, Megabass Vision 110s, you cannot beat them.
Right.
But a jerk bait, you're able to twitch through and over those weeds, and when you pause them, either they're going to leave the weeds if it's a floating, or it's going to stay in that strike zone and antagonize that fish right above the weeds.
Right above that weed
and then
level.
tick them when you're twitching them, and ripping off the little bit of weeds it gathers instead of a lipless that dives right into the pile of weeds.
So again, as an angler going out in the early spring, and we need to talk about this too a little bit, but in the early spring, you're looking for weeds because that's where the oxygen is. And again, we're talking about an environment that has traditionally been oxygen depleted because of the ice. So you're looking for the weeds where the oxygen is, but also because it's pre-spawn, those weed flats that are outside of channels and pockets, because these fish have not and are not ready to move into spawn yet, so they're still out on those types of flats. That's the position, that's the place where these bass are going to be in that pre-spawn types of, you know, like up here in Illinois, Wisconsin, in the, you know, in the March, April kind of time months before they're moving into spawn.
Yeah, they'll move up into some shallow water on those sunny days, hanging around in that little bit warmer water, following the little bait fish and such, eating along the way. And that's where you'll start to, they're actively feeding, you're going to actively see them twitch, bag a bass.
Absolutely, absolutely. Guys, all of these baits, Casey, you told me these, you are fully stocked with these baits that we were talking about here.
Yes, all here.
And these baits are available not only here at Anglers International Resources, but on fishinggurus.com. Remember, guys, it's fishinggurus.com. If you use that MFO10 discount, you can get 10% off on that. You can order online through Fishing Gurus, or you can come into the store here in Palatine and still get that 10% discount. You want to stock up on these baits before you get out for that first fishing trip of the springtime. Casey, thanks for all your help. We appreciate it, man. Let's get out there and go fishing sometime,
right,
man.
Definitely.
All right. Take care, everybody.